Welcome to One Man's View. I'm AlexFate, and it is the 10th of August 2014. In front of us is St. Paul's Cathedral, just over the River Thames in London. A beautiful view, I hope you agree. If we look at the papers today, we'll see headlines concentrate upon Israel, Palestine, and the conflict in Gaza. There are so many voices to be heard on this subject. I thought it was time that I offered mine. And I'll be slightly contentious with my view. Why do we fight? If you're not from Israel, and if you have no connection with Palestine, you might see the Middle East as madness. A war that began, continues, and forever will. Perhaps to explain the situation you might look into religious texts. You might say that God gave the land to a certain group of people. You may even say that maps were redrawn and it's just an event of history from after World War I, World War II, the UN, the UK, interference of powers and nations. You might even look into a more esoteric view and redefine Israel as Israel, Isis, Ra, and Elohim. You can choose any view you want, but the fighting still continues. So let me offer a new suggestion. It isn't Israel. It isn't Palestine. It's you. It's me. It's all of us. It's human nature. For example, during the Second World War, this country fought with Germany and Hitler. Although, in truth, we didn't fight Hitler. Our soldiers fought German soldiers. Our people fought German people. It was the people who fought each other. Practically no soldier actually aimed a gun at Hitler. So what is it that makes us able to kill? To kill our fellow man? What makes us able to do that? You might say in the Second World War that we fought to defend ourselves. But I don't think it's that simple. Why, for example, did the German population rise up to fight us, to attack us, as we've been told? We shouldn't forget that the Nazi Party was originally the National Socialist German Workers' Party, a completely legal and elected party within Germany. But if you still feel that the war was clear-cut, then let me offer another suggestion. Why did we go to war in Iraq? Saddam Hussein did not attack us. He had no weapons of destruction. Iraq did not attack the Twin Towers. And yet we felt somehow justified in killing tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people. And again, it wasn't the leader, it wasn't those in power. It was the population. Us. We went to war. I've often said that it was because of religion. Not their religion, but ours. If, for example, America had been an Islamic state, then they probably could not have attacked Iraq. But I think that's putting things too simple. Let me try and be more exact. Let's look at Israel. I've been there, first of all, and I've seen the people and I've seen how they are prepared for war. They have tape ready to seal a window in case of a gas attack. They have shelters ready to move to for their own safety. For their own safety. That is such a phrase that is used nowadays. For your safety. Stand here, go there, do this, don't do that. For your safety. Whenever I hear that phrase, then I have to question it. If we look at Israel, the people go to their shelters when the sirens go off. And why do the sirens go off? Because Israel has the Iron Dome. What is that? It's a missile defense system based around Israel, which is aimed at intercepting and shooting down the rockets that are fired from Hamas. Now let's just stop for a moment. Let's stop the bickering. Let's stop blaming Hamas for firing rockets. Let's stop blaming Israel for wanting land. Let's just stop for a moment. You know, on a personal level, I've never seen a Hamas rocket being intercepted in the air. Now, I'm not saying they don't do that. I've seen video footage of missiles being shot into the air. I've seen people running to safety after sirens have called people to hide in their shelters. When the people lay on the ground for their safety, when they move to the shelters for their safety, they don't see in the sky. Okay, you may not like what I'm saying. You might say, but of course there are rockets. So let me be hypothetical here. Let me suggest, just for a moment, that Hamas never fire a rocket. Just go with me on this, please, for one moment. I'm not saying they do, I'm not saying they don't, I'm saying just imagine for one moment. Now picture the scene. Sirens go off. People are afraid. They're not afraid of Hamas. They'll tell you that to their face, but they are afraid. They're afraid of being hurt, of injured, of their loved ones being hurt. Maybe even they're afraid of their pride as a nation being hurt. So they move for cover. They hear missiles being sent off in defense. They hear explosions. They feel as if they have been attacked and as if they have been defended. And this repeats. This goes on and on and on. What does that do? Well, in this hypothetical situation where there have been no rockets fired, the people live in a state of fear, a state of tension. So you see, it doesn't even matter if rockets are fired, because the people still live in that same state, if rockets are fired or not. And there is a phrase, love controls the individual and fear controls a society. It is fear that makes us go to war. Fear of being hurt, fear of losing, fear of dying. Let me bring this closer to home. St. Paul's Cathedral, designed by Sir Christopher Wren, allegedly once a Roman temple to Diana, and even further back, some say, based upon the site of a stone megalithic circle. It's beautiful. Why is it there? During the Second World War, the Germans attacked London. The German Luftwaffe bombed, missiles were sent, doodlebugs, flying bombs. They would stream over the English Channel. They would go over London and then the engines would cut out and they would drop. Fear and panic was everywhere. Sirens would go off and people would run to their shelters. They would hide in their shelters from fear of these missiles being shot from over the border. Does it remind you of anywhere? You see, the scene we have in Israel and Palestine, although the names are different and the technology is different, history is repeated. I've often said that history repeats, but things do change. Names change, people change, weapons change. Perspectives sometimes change. But the control that people are under is usually the same. We had our own Iron Dome system in the Second World War. We had barrage balloons strung up in the sky, so planes or perhaps missiles would hit them and explode in the sky instead of on the ground. Exactly the same principle as that in Israel. So what can we learn from what's already happened? Well, the Second World War, the Blitz of London, caused huge damage, except it would seem to St. Paul's Cathedral, which although hit, was not destroyed. Such a prominent feature. There are many suggestions as to why that is. But what of the people? Well, the first thing is, people were afraid. I mean, how can you not be afraid? There are bombs coming down. And the one thing with the London Blitz, buildings were destroyed everywhere, indiscriminately. We haven't quite seen that in Israel. But I digress there. Because in both places the people lived in fear. And with that fear came something else. Unity. The people felt united, especially against what they perceived as a common enemy. The enemy outside. Just like a Wild West film where all the cowboys are around a fire and they hear something out in the darkness. The enemy outside. And when you give that enemy a name, Hamas, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Hitler, Nazis, whatever the name is, whatever you are told the enemy is, it's easy to point at them. It's easy to pick up your sticks and to go and smash them, just as they will be doing to you. You see, the one common thing with all these conflicts are people being controlled. And with that, there are people who are controlling you. They control us. There are people who profit from every war. Not just the warlords, but the people selling arms, dealing in arms. That's their job. The people who draw the maps, the people who plan for the resources. These people benefit from war. Now, if we said in the Second World War, we all behaved like Gandhi, and we all said, come and attack if you will, but we will not fight you, you'd be called an idiot, probably. You'd be told that the Germans would come over the hills and shoot you, and you'd be dead. Well, we don't know that would happen. Yes, it's a possibility, so why would we not do it? What would stop us? Because we don't want to die, we want to be alive? Or is it because we are afraid of death? We are afraid so much that we will pick up a stick and kill in the name of life. With every conflict, from history to the present, and those that are going to happen tomorrow, we are to blame. Fear is used to control us every day. But in a war, we can become blind to fear because we are prompted, we are told to look outside of the camp at the enemy. Well, I encourage you. See the enemies, for they are real. Look into the monster's eyes to know they exist. But don't forget to look back into yourself. See the monster inside you. In the name of peace, we have killed so many. If you want to make a change outside, in this world of ours, of all of ours, first we must begin within. And then perhaps, like St. Paul's Cathedral, we too can survive. An Iron Dome is a great way to remind people they must be afraid, to remind them that they are under attack. And whether it's past, present or future, which all belong in the now, we're always reminded. Even now in London, there are memorials, effigies, symbols, so that we cannot forget, so that we should not forget. We are told to remember, to commemorate. And whilst I accept that the dead should not be forgotten, when we're asked to remember, we're not asked to question. And without questioning, how can we ever build a better future? Question those who tell you to kill, who will send your children off to war. Question those who will stand on a box and point at the devil outside. Ask yourself if those people really care for who you are inside. Thank you for sharing your time with me.